what happens with the new government, whether it's weak or strong, what happens to the Malaysian economy? Will there be a recession in 2023? They try to buy low, sell high. In the end, they end up buying high and selling low. People have to understand what causes climate change. The usual popular explanation is China. Number one, the largest emitter. That is a lot of bullshit. Whether you're an investor or not investor, you want to know what the economy is doing, you want to know where the country is heading politically. The advice that people get is buy low, sell high. Right? Now the advice sounds so simple and it's so logical, but actually it's not that simple. And a lot of times individual investors or even institutional investors, they try to buy low, sell high. In the end, they end up buying high and selling low. So that, I think, will be one of the most common mistakes that investors make, individual or non-individual, and which also mean that it will lead to a situation where investors find it hard to sustain the profit that they have made. I have been investing for a long time, and for example in 1985 there were so many individual Malaysian investors that lost a fortune, and at that time there was also a political crisis facing Malaysia, and a lot of the investors were invested in unit trusts at that time, and the unit trusts at that time invested in only certain companies which are related to certain politicians at that time. So this politician ended up in jail and a lot of his companies went bankrupt, affecting a lot of unit trusts. And a lot of the unit trusts are actually invested by individual investors who trusted the unit trust fund managers. But they lost a big amount. Same thing in 97. So every time there is a crisis, every time there's a bear market, the people who lose the most are the individual investors, whether it's 73, 85, 97, 08. So I guess having seen all that, having seen how the investors are affected, how their families, like in 1985 where the whole family is so badly affected that they couldn't afford the children's education, right? Or in 08 where people that I know personally, even my own relatives, where they lost because of the Lehman Brothers panic. They lost their entire savings at the time when they're retiring. So why is it that people, the ordinary investors, why is it that they have to always suffer? So I guess being socially conscious, being responsible to society, we figure that there must be a way that Capital Dynamics, myself, would be able to share and reach out and benefit as many people, as many investors as we possibly can. So that's why we came up with the idea of Investor Day, right? Where we hope that with my experience, with my knowledge, I can share them, and then by sharing them, that investors would know the sort of mistakes they make and would know that there's a better way. There is another way where I can sustain my investment return. So we sat down and said that, well, the best way is to organize an event that is meant for individual investors. Do you have people who coming all the way from Sydney, from UK, that will book their tickets 6 months in advance and fly all the way? These are thousands of kilometers away just to attend our Investor Day, just for this purpose. And then 5 years later, 10 years later, somebody will come and say, oh yeah, Mr. Tai, I can remember on this Investor Day, you said this or this person said this. So the fact that they can remember it for so many years, and they always ask, especially during the pandemic, when is our Investor Day going to come back? They miss it. So I think these are the feedback that we've gotten that tells us that it is benefiting people, is being appreciated by all the participants. If you look at the whole Asia Pacific, there's no such event. iCapital.biz Berhad Investor Day is the one and only one in the entire continent. And we're proud because, Malaysia for once is able to be the lead. So our motivation is to reach out and help the ordinary investors where they don't have the experience, they don't have the resources, they don't have the skill, they don't have the time. So by attending the 1.5 days, I think the individual investors, or whether you're experienced or inexperienced, will get to know what it is that you know, what it is that you don't know. Very important lessons to learn. I personally will be touching on quite a wide range of topics. Remember, the first day is 26 November, 6 days after the election results are known. So one of the most important topics I'll deal with is what happens with the new government, whether it's weak or strong. What happens to the Malaysian economy? Will there be a recession in 2023? What happens to the ringgit? What happens to the stock market? What happens to Malaysia's political future? So those are, of course, we are all Malaysians. Those questions are fundamentally important to anyone. Whether you're investor or not investor, you want to know what the economy is doing, you want to know where the country is heading politically. That is at the local level. At the global level, there are many events that have never happened before or happened once in 100 years. The pandemic is once in 100 years. So we are exiting from it. What does that mean? The post-pandemic world, what does it mean, right? Not just for Malaysia, but for an important economy like China. And then the geopolitical crisis, which the last time we had a geopolitical situation that is so tense as now was 50, 60 years ago, during the Vietnam War, during the Korean War, right? Now you have US versus Russia in Ukraine. Now you have US, whether it's under Trump or Biden, and after the midterm election, US may have the House of Senate and the House of Representatives may be controlled by Republicans. So what does that mean for the US technology economic war that they have launched against China? And how is that going to affect our Malaysian economy? The most important issue of all is climate change. I personally believe that climate change is irreversible. It's too late. We should have taken action 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's too late. People have to understand what causes climate change. The usual popular explanation is China. Number one, the largest emitter. That is a lot of bullshit. Yes, China now is the largest carbon dioxide emitter, no doubt. But climate change doesn't happen until a certain lag. The climate change effect that we are facing now, that the world is facing now, is because of the emission from the industrial revolution that happened 150 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, created by Britain, Europe, and America. Now this is called cumulative emission. Cumulative emission is the biggest contributor to climate change because it takes decades for the impact to be felt. So what China has been emitting the last 5 years, you don't see the consequence yet. So that is something that a lot of people don't understand, that cumulative emission is the biggest contributor. And the other thing that, whether you're an investor or not, you have to understand is climate justice. Why is it that the 1%, that super rich segment of society are the one that's creating the most impact on climate change, and why is it that the poor 50% of the population have to suffer? The climate change, the impact comes from United States, come from UK, come from Europe. But 33 million people, poor people in Pakistan, have got to suffer from floods. So how does it affect all of us? It is complex. And on 26th of November, this will be one of the topics I will deal with. And then on 27th November, we have a range of topics on why iCapital.biz Berhad has succeeded, why it works. That's very important because it can be a core stock in your personal portfolio. And then how to make sure that when people tell you buy low, sell high, why it doesn't work in the stock market. And why must you be having an investment framework of your own. If you do not know what an investment framework is, come to 27 November, we'll explain to you and we'll tell you why investment framework allows you, if you have the correct investment framework, it allows you to be brave when people are frightened. When the market is bearish, turbulent, it allows you to be brave and to be able to buy stocks at the right price. And then of course, we have a summary session, a conclusive session where we link it all together for you. How would you navigate a chaotic world as an investor, where you can go in with low risk and high returns?